Meanwhile, there are some concerns over the rising number of infections at schools across the country after grade 7s and 12s returned with their teachers at the beginning of the month. Grades 3, 6, 10 and 11s will, with their teachers, go back to school from July the 6th as well. To talk to us about the readiness and the take of the parents on this matter, we're joined via Skype by the National Association of School Governing Bodies General Secretary, Matakanye Matakanye. Dr. Matakanye, good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming through.
Good afternoon, Palisa, and all your listeners.
For coming through. So other grades are returning to school on the 6th of July. Are you confident? Are you happy that the department has 100% complied with the health standards and the regulations as set out by the National Coronavirus Command Council?
Look, Palisa, it's really not a question of us being happy. It's the fact that we had earlier on agreed that schools must be opened based on the conditions that we put. You'll remember that we had the non-negotiables, that we really do not have a problem when schools do open. However, all the non-negotiables must be addressed. And the grade 7s and the grade 12 reopened on the 8th, but continuously we have complaints from our schools that now the non-negotiables are not adhered to. For instance, there are still schools that have closed from the 8th up to date. They don't have water. Those schools do not have the PPEs. Those schools cannot observe the social distancing. That is the worry that we are having, that now, really and truly, if we don't step up, I think this week really the minister and all the system must just step up so that now there must be no confusion when all the other classes are going back on Monday next week.
All right, so let me just get clarity on this. As you say that some of your concerns and the issues, as you say, it's non-negotiables, have not been addressed. So I would imagine this means that you are not happy that more grades will be phased in from the 6th of next month.
Palisa, I don't hear you.
All right. What I was saying is that, as you say that some of the things, non-negotiables as you call them, have not been addressed by the Department of Basic Education. So the question is, I would imagine that as it is now, you're not happy that more grades are going to be phased in on the 6th of July.
Hence, Palisa, I'm saying, really and truly, the department must step up its operation. In the sense that now next week schools are the schools will be receiving more children. Now just imagine when there are still schools that do not have the non-negotiables, water, for instance, enough PPEs, and they cannot observe the social distancing. Just imagine when these children are going back next week, what will be the situation look like? You see, there will be really, really chaos in our schools. So we want to make a call to the Department of Education that now they address all these non-negotiables quickly this week. Really by next week, when our children are going back, they must find order in the school. They must not find confusion, so that through that confusion, then they will contract this pandemic.
But are you making this call to the department just live on television now, Dr. Matakanye, or have you engaged the department, seeing that you know that some schools have been without water, some schools have been without PPEs? Have you engaged them?
We have been engaging them throughout. That truly, you remember that, Palisa, initially, we were not comfortable when the school's supposed to have been open on the 25th. Then we met the minister, and the minister agreed that now that week of the 25th, then it will be a week of mopping up. And we agreed. And we had hoped that now, really, by the 8th, when the school reopened, all the non-negotiables will be addressed and they will be in schools. But I must tell you, up to now, there are schools that are still closed. There are schools that do not have those things. But we continuously, maybe even through this platform, they must hear me that now we are still making a strong appeal that we really do not want our children to go into those schools and find confusion, because that confusion really is going to ensure that now our children are infected in schools.
But from the information that you may have received from your members, have the national as well as the provincial education departments been honest about their readiness to open schools for more grades? What are you getting from the ground? What are you getting from parents and your members in general?
Really on the ground, Palesa, schools are opening, the following day are closed. Schools are opening, the following day are closed. Then we are hearing the reports that now so and so, this number of teachers have been infected in schools, then schools are closing, then that schools are going to be fumigated, and then children will come back next week. Now that it shows ourselves that we were not properly prepared in the sense that now when the teacher comes through the gate, they must quickly identify that teacher, must be screened, must be identified, must be isolated, and all those things. But now, you'll find that now in that school, one teacher is affected, then it affects the whole school. The whole school then closes. So it means that really and truly, the provinces, the districts, the circuit are not doing their work. Really, they are not really doing their work, because at times they must make a supervision. They must monitor these schools where there is not these amenities. They must make sure that now they put those amenities in school, so that everybody who comes through the school must be quickly identified and screened, isolated, and then referred to the hospital or referred to the clinic to be tested and all those things. So we can't go on like this. Schools open today, tomorrow they are closed. They come back, they open today, tomorrow it cannot be business as usual.
All right. And you may know that there is some sense of anxiety and fear amongst the parents everywhere in all the communities we live in. So what do you say to a parent who's watching this interview now? Are you saying that they should keep their children at home because you're not happy that certain standards have not been met?
No, that's not what we are saying. We are not saying children must. We are not saying children must be kept at home, Palesa. We are saying children must be taken to the school. But what we want to make an appeal to the parents is that now they only can take to the schools where they.
All right, no, it looks like we're having some issues with your Skype in Matakanye, but thank you so much for coming through.
But the two schools where then they can observe the health standards, and those schools must be known by parents to ensure that now when they take their children.
I know. Okay, we have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for coming through. Matakanye Matakanye is the National Association of School Governing Bodies General Secretary, saying that they are still not happy with the standards that have been put by the Department of Basic Education, as some schools still do not have water, some still do not have PPE. So tomorrow here on the show, we'll have the Department of Basic Education to respond to all the allegations that were made by COSAS in our interview in the first hour, and of course what the SGBs are saying right now. So we'll certainly give them that right of reply here on the show tomorrow. Moving along now.